Space shower. Picture this. You're floating 270 miles above Earth, surrounded by nothing but cold metal walls, freeze-dried food, and your crewmate's suspicious foot odor. Naturally, you think, hey, a nice warm shower would hit the spot. This is where Skylab, NASA's first space station and home to the most unnecessarily complicated shower in human history, comes to play. This thing looks less like a bathroom fixture and more like something you'd use to trap a ghost. It was a collapsible tube-shaped tent astronauts had to put up around themselves when they needed to shower. Once inside, they'd strap their feet down, because microgravity loves a good mid-shampoo backflip. Then grab a pressurized water bottle and start the slow-motion struggle of washing up in space. Now here's the thing. You only got 6 pints of water and had to lather with liquid soap, rinse with a handheld sprayer, and vacuum every single floating droplet like your life depended on it, which it kinda did. Rogue water blobs plus electronics equals NASA's worst nightmare. All this for a process that could take over 2 hours. That's longer than it takes to watch Interstellar and still not understand the ending. Unsurprisingly, some astronauts looked at this floating shower coffin and said, nah, I'll just wipe down with a sponge. And that's why, to this day, NASA showers have been scrapped. Because when you're living in space, quick rinse means 2 hours, a vacuum hose, and a strong sense of regret. Space Zoo. When you think of animals in space, you probably picture Laika the dog, or maybe a heroic monkey in a tiny helmet. But NASA has also launched other varieties of animals enough to start a space zoo. We're talking about jellyfish, frogs, stick insect eggs, and balloon animals. Let's start with the classics. Fruit flies were the OG astronauts. Launched in 1947, before humans even dreamed of space hotels, turns out they're perfect for studying radiation exposure. Plus, they don't need tiny helmets. Monkeys and chimpanzees, basically the crash test dummies of the 50s space race. And they helped confirm that space wouldn't immediately turn you into mashed potatoes. And, of course, Laika the Soviet pup, who orbited Earth and broke hearts worldwide. Her mission wasn't designed to bring her back, but her sacrifice pushed engineers to design better, safer re-entry systems for future travelers, with thumbs. Then there's the real weirdos. Tardigrades, aka water bears, microscopic, invincible blobs, were sent up because they can survive literally anything. Vacuum, radiation, reality TV, you name it. And NASA astronaut Randy Bresnik brought life to space in his own way by crafting balloon animals in microgravity. No feeding required. Just don't pop one near the oxygen tanks. Also on the manifest, snails, sea urchins, brine shrimp, quail eggs, and more. Because, well, nothing else says cutting-edge science like asking, what happens if a jellyfish does backflips in 0G? Project Orion. NASA once smoked a blunt and seriously considered launching a spaceship by blowing up nuclear bombs underneath it. It was called Project Orion, and it was one of the most bizarre and explosive ideas to ever come out of their think tank. The plan was simple, in the way supervillain plans are simple. Take a spaceship, drop hundreds of nukes behind it, and ride the shockwaves like a cosmic rodeo. It would have been the fastest thing ever built by humans if it didn't vaporize itself first. Sadly, the problem started before the countdown. For one, nobody had a clue how to build a nozzle that wouldn't instantly melt or explode. Also, detonating nukes in space turned out to be politically unpopular. The 1963 Partial Test Ban Treaty basically said no more space kabooms, and Orion was shelved. Fast forward to the modern Orion. Yes, same name, less boom. This one actually went to space during Artemis 1, but came home with a scorched ego. Its heat shield lost chunks of charred material during re-entry, which is not ideal when you're plunging through the atmosphere at Mach 32. NASA blamed trapped gases in the shielding foam and hit pause on Artemis 2, while engineers figure out how to keep future astronauts from becoming space brisket. So from nuke-powered dreams to burnt marshmallow engineering, Orion has been weird from day one. But hey, at least no one exploded. Yet. Golden record. In 1977, NASA launched Voyager 1 and 2 into deep space with a bold idea. Slap a golden mixtape on the side and hope aliens are into retro tech. This wasn't your average record, though. The Voyager Golden Record is a 12-inch gold-plated copper disc sealed in a sleek aluminum case, which is basically the cosmic equivalent of sending a handwritten love letter in a world full of texts. Its mission was to say hi to any alien species that might stumble across it millions of years from now, and not immediately vaporize us. Inside you'll find greetings in 55 languages, some extinct, all confused sounding. Earth sounds like whales, footsteps, and laughter because why not terrify aliens with giggling? A playlist featuring Bach, Chuck Berry, and traditional music from across the globe. Over 100 images of life on Earth, from grocery shopping to DNA strands, just in case aliens want to study or mock us. Scientific data and a pulsar map pointing right back to us, which some people have wisely called cosmic doxing. And yes, even a message from Jimmy Carter, who basically wrote the universe's first awkward voicemail. Now, will anyone actually find it? Who knows? They might not even know what a record is. But if they do, at least they'll know this. The Earth was loud, weird, full of love and noise, and someone wanted to say hello. You can also drop your own message by hitting like and subscribe. We'll make sure NASA gets it. Opportunity rover. NASA built Opportunity to last 90 Martian days. That's it. Just 3 months of poking around in red dust, taking selfies, and trying not to fall into a crater. But Opportunity looked around and said, "Nah, I'm good," then proceeded to last 14.5 years. Now, that's not a mission. That's a lifestyle. Launched in 2004 with its twin Spirit, Opportunity was meant to be a short-term visitor. Instead, it became a marathon runner of the Martian world, logging 28 miles across rocky alien terrain. That may not sound like much, but remember, this was a robot on 6 wheels, powered by sunlight and 2000s tech. It didn't even have Spotify, and it wasn't just wandering around either. Opportunity made major finds, including evidence of ancient water, the kind that could have supported microbial life. It studied rock formations, navigated valleys like a slow-motion explorer, and basically helped rewrite everything we knew about Mars. Then came June 2018, and with it, a planet-wide dust storm that blocked out the sun. With no sunlight, Opportunity lost power. NASA sent over 800 commands to wake it up. No response. Opportunity wasn't the biggest, flashiest rover, just the one that kept going when it didn't have to. And boy did it make the best use of its name. Space dinosaurs. NASA is best known for rockets, moon landing, and the occasional rover marathon. But did you know it also dabbled in dinosaurs? Yep, the same agency that launches billion-dollar satellites has also helped track down T-Rex relatives, because clearly Jurassic Park in space was too good to stay fiction. It all started in 2012 when a NASA contractor took a walk near the Goddard Space Flight Center and tripped over a giant rock slab full of dinosaur footprints. Well, it turns out Goddard had been quietly squatting on a prehistoric stomping ground from the Cretaceous period. But NASA didn't stop there. They used their remote sensing tech, the same stuff they used to study alien worlds, to help paleontologists on Earth locate fossil sites. Basically, they turned satellites into treasure maps for dino bones. And because NASA can't help but flex, they've also launched dinosaur fossils into space. A Maiasaura bone rode Spacelab 2 in 1985. A Colophusa skull visited the Mir space station in 1998. And a T-Rex fragment hitched a ride on Orion in 2014. Not for science. For vibes. Just vibes. Symbolic vibes. Because nothing says remember Earth like launching a prehistoric death lizard into orbit. So no, there aren't any fossils on the moon, but thanks to NASA, there are dinosaurs in space. And that's just cool enough to make every 9-year-old's dream a little more real. Sapphire experience. Most people go out of their way to avoid setting things on fire, especially inside an enclosed spaceship. But not NASA. They basically said, let's light it up for science. This was the Sapphire experiment, NASA's boldest and probably most fire-prone experiment series. The mission was to understand how fire behaves in microgravity because, shocker, flames don't follow Earth's rules when you're 250 miles up. But don't worry, they're not torching the International Space Station. That would be inconvenient. Instead, NASA waits until the Cygnus cargo spacecraft finishes its delivery run on the ISS. Then, once it undocks and begins to slow farewell plunge into Earth's atmosphere, NASA turns it into a controlled inferno. Inside a fireproof box, scientists ignite a lovely mix of materials like cotton, fiberglass, blends, and PMMA, basically glorified plastic. Cameras, sensors, and gas analyzers capture every flicker and gasp. Then, Cygnus, now a space barbecue, burns up safely during re-entry. Fire experiment complete. No astronauts harmed. Turns out flames in microgravity spread differently, slower, smoother, but sneakier. And the shape of the container affects how fast the fire travels. Imagine fighting a ghost fire that doesn't rise, doesn't flicker, and might just be floating towards your oxygen supply. The Sapphire data has been a game changer for designing fire detection and suppression systems in future spacecraft. Because if you're going to live on the moon or Mars, you'd better know what to do when someone's protein bar decides to spontaneously combust. Space gardens. Astronauts are tough. They handle radiation, isolation, and freeze-dried lasagna. But eventually, even the most hardened spacefarer will look at their pouch of rehydrated peas and think, is this really my life now? That's why NASA decided to launch a space garden. It's basically a project that's less sci-fi and more sci-farm. Using tools like veggie ponds, and the advanced plant habitat aboard the ISS, NASA's turning space into the galaxy's weirdest greenhouse. The goal is to grow food, breathe better, and maybe help astronauts not lose their minds during 2-year Mars missions. Turns out growing plants in microgravity isn't as easy as tossing seeds in dirt. There's no down in space. Water floats off like it's got somewhere better to be, and plants can't decide which way to grow. But with enough lights, fans, and scientific stubbornness, NASA's managed to harvest space-grown lettuce, radishes, mustard greens, and even zinnias, because flowers matter too. And it's not just about food. Tending to a little floating salad patch gives astronauts a sense of routine and connection to Earth, which is huge when your nearest grocery store is 254 miles away, straight down. Back on Earth, the Growing Beyond Earth project gets students and citizen scientists involved, helping NASA test which crops are tough enough for zero-G. Twin study. Identical twins have always been great for pranks, but NASA used them for something far more dramatic, testing how space messes with the human body. For this mission, they used Scott and Mark Kelly, twin astronauts with matching DNA and wildly different commutes. In 2015, Scott blasted off to the ISS for 340 days, while Mark chilled on Earth, doing astronaut things with gravity. The mission was to turn Scott into a real life science experiment and compare every cell, sneeze, and synapse to his Earth-bound twin. And things got weird. While floating around up there, Scott's gene expression went full remix, with changes in how thousands of genes turned on and off. Some returned to normal after landing, but others said, "We live in space now." His telomeres, those little caps that keep your DNA from fraying, got longer in orbit, then shrunk back and possibly overshot when he returned. He even grew 2 inches taller thanks to spinal decompression. But like all good things, it flattened out when gravity reclaimed its throne. There were other things, though, like vision issues, a slightly slower brain, and an immune system that surprisingly kept its cool. The takeaway from the mission was that humans are surprisingly adaptable, but space still throws punches. ARM. NASA once dreamed up a plan so bold it sounded like a Marvel plotline. Grab a chunk of asteroid, haul it to the moon's neighborhood, and then send humans to poke at it. That was the Asteroid Redirect Mission, or ARM. The idea was simple. First, send a robotic spacecraft with fancy arms or a space net to snatch either a whole mini asteroid or just a boulder off a big one. Then drag that rock into lunar orbit, where astronauts could practice deep space operations, collect samples, and test out future Mars tech, like solar electric propulsion, which is basically an engine powered by sassy sunlight and quiet humming. ARM was also NASA's answer to the question, what if an asteroid was headed for Earth and we didn't feel like going extinct? It aimed to boost planetary defense skills, from tracking space rocks to maybe one day deflecting them like a giant cosmic goalie. But despite the big ambitions, budget cuts, politics, and skepticism came crashing in, like, well, an asteroid. In 2017, the robotic mission got axed. No rock grabbing, no moon drop-off, no astronaut high-fives in lunar orbit. Still, ARM's legacy lives on. The tech, especially solar electric propulsion, is now part of NASA's future missions, and the lessons learned help shape how we'll handle space threats down the line. So we didn't throw an asteroid, but we definitely learned how to.